session 4C. It has a title at the beginning that sounds like it might be just another academic talk, scaling up community action through collaboration with local authorities, but all the exciting stuff happens after the colon. And here, a practical exploration of philosophies, policies, and practices. So that's where the fun stuff goes. But it is an attempt
I can chat it to you on
actually be practical, which as an academic, you might say, you know, I have no experience in being so. But today we have Rehema White, Anne-Kathrin Schwab, Taisa Mattos, and Nara Petrovič. And I would say they need no introduction because they've all been introduced multiple times already today. So they literally need no introduction. So with that, I will invite the Zoom participant to just be cognizant of the fact that much of this is going to be an active thing. So you will be encouraged to wiggle in your chair or dance on your own. But it might be difficult to actually participate fully in it, but you can feel the aura of the West Room as this dynamic foursome guide us on how to interact. So with that, who is up from this tremendous organizing group? Taisa?
Thank you. Okay, are we ready to go? So welcome, everyone. Thank you, Stephen. I'm here representing the Eco-Village Transition in Action team. I'm the project coordinator, and this is an Erasmus Plus partnership project involving Ecolis, Gen Germany, Gen International, and St. Andrews University. And we'll be here sharing a little bit of our project learnings and the project outcomes. And we hope this will be a very interactive session. So Eco-Village Transition in Action is about collaboration, and we don't want it to be too formal. So to start, we would like to welcome all of you to come to stand up and join us here. And the ones on the other side of the screen can just enjoy. Say we'll be taking good care of you. All right. So we can just walk around a little bit. I don't know if during the conference you had the opportunity to meet everyone here. So just walk a little bit and stretch. You can feel your body. And then you can find someone that you don't know so much. That's the ideal option. Oh,
no, but Roger
okay.
is
And then I'm going to, I'm going to invite you.
Yeah, I'm confused.
To briefly introduce yourself. What do you do?
Okay,
which project or university you were related to, and what brought you to the ICSA conference? And maybe the ones there in the other side of the room can also share where are you from and what's a little bit about your project. Who are you? And Sayo will be taking care of you. most relevant one, or maybe a funny one. You can share an experience around collaboration in 1 or 2 minutes. It will be brief. That's why the microphone is not working. Great. So thank you. If you need like a few more seconds to wrap up, you can have it, and then we can come back to our places. Can people hear me, Sale? Now they can. Nice. All right. So The team can be here because I will invite you to introduce the project. As I told you, it's a project about collaboration. And we co-created 4 main, what do we call in the Erasmus projects, intellectual outputs: a handbook, a teacher training, a toolkit, and also a navigator. And I want to invite my team members to present each one of them to you.
Wanna start?
Toolkit.
The toolkit. So
No, just take it.
the toolkit, it's hard to. No, I have only one hand and I can't. Maybe, yeah, maybe you can show it around. So the toolkit mainly consists. I just handed it around. It's with Andre. It starts with an introduction about different tools, as you can imagine, about like communities and collaboration about communities, about the sustainable development goals and their limitations. So we introduce basically all the material we actually explain in the next part 2. We have some translated, actually some cards we developed especially for German regional areas to collaborate with local authorities that are all into that toolkit you can download soon. And it goes further to a tool that is called the stepping stones, which actually helps to see where you are in the process of collaboration, where you are in the process of your project management. It turns out after that stepping stones, there are some yes.
They are inspired in the hero's journey, and where there are many stages of the journey, and it was we harvest from another Erasmus project, Circle, where they used it for social entrepreneurship, and here we adapted it to use as the journey of collaboration.
Yeah, and at the end, they're coming. You want to?
Yeah, I just want to compliment a bit because I don't think we've really explained what it's all about. We said it's about collaboration between community-led initiatives and municipality or local authorities. But maybe like just to say that it's not just theoretical studying. It's much more practical. We're trying to give some instructions how this can be actually done. A toolkit is part of it. And I will next present the handbook, which gives more theoretical outline. It's just so to know that, we are community practitioners and also academics. We're trying to bring together our knowledge to explain how collaboration between community-led initiatives and local authorities can work very well. So,
thank you very much. And at the end of the toolkit, we actually give some best practice examples of a lot of people we took the interviews with. And we just took a quote and a short summary of the interview where you can get the impression about it. And about the interviews, there will be also an online version, a video where the entire interview you can watch and you can get an impression of the project itself, how they are collaborating there and what is the project all about. So yeah, and then we come to the handbook. Then we swap to the handbook.
So handbook. We looked at primarily eco-villages because those were the models that we draw main experiences and tools from. And we decided to pick one very like original tool that was developed by Eco-Village, Global Eco-Village Network, which are at the map of regeneration that include these cards. And they can be used in many different ways. And we'll practice a little bit how this can be done in practice. And the second tool is a very well-known, who hasn't heard about SDGs? You haven't heard about SDGs? You have heard. SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. Yeah, Sustainable Development Goals. You've seen these images everywhere. It's like, whenever you look at some kind of government programs, United Nations stuff, sustainability, if you talk about it, SDG is always in the air. maybe like in other languages you use different acronyms, so it's not so prominent in your head, but it's everywhere. So we're connecting eco-village kind of bottom-up approach, and this is more top-down approach. And then in between, there are many meeting points, which also Rehema will talk about. So we present these tools and suggest some ways how they can be used, plus introduce some like hints and tips and stuff like that for practical collaboration between all kinds of community-led initiatives, but specifically really communities. We also try to look at it from local authority side, because it's happening more and more that they also want to collaborate with community-led initiatives, and try to give some suggestions, some inspiration how they can do their collaboration from their side. And yeah, all the tools that are described in the toolkit are maybe more theoretically outlined in the handbook. And yeah, there's so many theoretical tools, and there is like a whole description of stuff. There are references, and which in this printout it's not the final one, so bear with us. We are still digesting all the feedback that we received from people. So if you have feedbacks, we're happy to hear. Thank you. One part of this handbook is this is essentially like supporting a curriculum for training people to facilitate this kind of collaboration. So we organized a training of trainers as well as our team in order to to test how this facilitation works in practice. And we're hoping in the future to have more trainers trained for this kind of work. And then we will have also the third and fourth intellectual outputs, which I think fourth especially will be presented by Rehema.
Thank you. So the fourth one is the navigator tool. And the idea for that is that we're all going to be having these fantastic collaboration projects underway, but how do we keep track of them? So the navigator tool is based on the stepping stones that you so kindly introduced. So you start off with an idea, but in our tool, you'll be able to capture that idea, maybe just with a photograph, maybe with a photograph of the flip chart or the beer mat where you all decided that you were going to do things. And then you have another little bit where you start mapping out who you're going to collaborate with and how. Eventually you get, of course, to the step, which is the map, the point of despair and the deep, dark forest where your collaboration doesn't work and you don't understand each other. And then you move towards the end and you have a celebration to remind us all to reflect and celebrate on what we're doing. And so it will be a tool which is online. It will allow you to track your own progress and to be able to print out a little bit more easily some of the data that you might need for reports as well. So those are the tools. Fear not, they will be freely available to download in September. So we're just working on the last details just now and then trying to make sure that they all integrate and that they link up really well. But I'm going to take you back briefly to some of the main tools and frameworks that we've been using. And so we'll be working now with the map of regeneration. And the map of regeneration, I'm sure some of you will have used it before. It's a really beautiful, holistic way that Jen actually, you can stay here, it's to keep me company, that Jen actually explores what kind of life we might want to live and how we're doing that within our communities. So that's very much a grounded community for community within community way of looking at things. But actually it links directly to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And because those are international goals that almost all member states have signed up to, all national governments have some kind of obligation to pursue those. All national governments to some extent have passed that responsibility on to local government. So local government is using the SDGs in some way in almost every country that I'm aware of to be able to organize or to inform their planning, and they're part of the reporting process for different governments. And that means that suddenly local governments are quite keen to start thinking about these holistic visions and to be able to put nice things that they can report against the SDGs and nice things against the indicators that they have to measure. So in Scotland, for example, we have something called the National Performance Framework, where in Scotland, we looked at what we were measuring that related to the SDG indicators and looked at what we were measuring that's not part of the SDG indicators, but we think it's important anyway, and looked at things that we might want to measure, which are actually part of the indicators. We undertook a mapping exercise and we produced a kind of flower of what we think Scotland's priorities are, or Scotland's government's priorities are. And that is laid out for local governments to try to pursue. So that's a really nice way of being able to relate what we do at community level in our collaboration with local government and also with national and international organizations. It creates a common structure through different scales. So we are going to pass on now and we're going to go on to the next activity.
Interesting. Maybe I can hold it, or maybe you hold it.
And I pass it around. So actually, this is a small roadway. You will probably figure out quite fast. Hello.
Excuse me?
Hello, my name is Anne Schwab. I'm a participant of an eco-village close by. And I'm really happy to tell you something about a toilet, like compost toilets. It's a really great project. I want to bring it to this village.
Have I met you before? Maybe, you know, how can you just come into the mayor's office like this?
It's a really great project. You should really look at it.
I'm sorry, I was having a meeting with the mayor. I'm from the local university. Don't
Nice
you
to
know?
meet you here.
I'm
You
one
can
of the
help me.
professors from the university.
Yes,
We were having a very important meeting.
I'm just writing some notes.
But you actually can bring evidence to that. You can actually help me with that.
I'm sorry, we don't provide evidence just to support people. We do inform. objective.
Have you ever heard about compost toilets? Do you know what brings that to our environment?
You know, can you just describe some kind of framework? So
Framework, what? You have that.
you know, you're in a mayor's office. You know, you should speak the language.
I do speak.
I can understand.
language.
Like it's,
Well, you know this eco-village. We are principals of the Gen Map of Regeneration. Have you ever heard about that? So great. This is like really good what we're doing actually.
bound with my national programs and stuff like that. Sustainable development goals. Are you
I'm
implying
sorry,
that?
we're not so interested just in your compost toilet. I think you want the planning office just down
We have a
there.
waste management system for our waterways and all like these sewage systems. So have you studied that?
But actually, you can help me when you're at the university. Have you ever heard of commons, circular economy? You know, all these things.
The circular economy.
Circular economy.
In what way are you dealing with the circular
With the
economy?
compost
Of course I'm
toilets.
interested in the
Yes.
circular economy. Does
Well,
the
you can-
funding fall out?
Yeah.
I'm looking for an opportunity to try to get some funding.
Yes,
to be able to
and we
do
have
that.
that in our eco-village. You could just look at it.
Oh, I'm very interested in that
No.
now.
Have you done the SWOT analysis?
What? We are not working with military.
I mean, I don't know. We have a business card, so we can set up a meeting or something.
My card.
Okay, no, I'll call you later, you know, I'll call you later. We'll talk
I
about it.
think there might actually be something quite interesting here. So the circular economy is
I
really
just
up
don't
and
know,
coming. Even at a European
talk
level,
together
they're
and
quite
prepare a
interested in
proposal
these
and
different
then
kinds of
You
things.
prepare a proposal
So
and then.
I'd like to know what scale you're working.
Come with
at
me.
and whether we
It's like
can
really-
start to evidence new
Who's
ways.
spaced out
But I
now?
think we need to work with you as well, because unless we understand there's some kind of possibility for having different forms of
Okay.
wastewater system
Call
here,
me the SWOT
why
analysis,
can't we
and
all
then-
sit down together and see if we can write you into our proposal? Because in our proposal, we'll be able to get funding for an intern to work with you and to help you develop your wastewater systems.
I don't know, how will this affect my, like, elections are coming in September and.
How many people live at work in your?
There are about 100 people, and we're also all very, like, do a lot of social innovations.
social innovation is also something that's very important, you know. So don't you have to report against the don't you have to report against the sustainable development goals now?
Well, sure, but
Yeah,
you know,
so,
you need to
so
scale it up.
this might
You
actually
need to
help
scale it up.
you.
You need to scale it up.
Yes,
It's
but
like
perhaps
just a
this could
marginal
be
thing. and
innovative projects that
Excuse me,
can
that's
start
like,
to get you
forget
going.
about it. Who's next? What do we do now? No, it's you. Or but no, we just do.
I think we'll give you.
But just we just but wait. We just have to. What have you noticed?
Different language. There are different languages. There are three different people with three different interests. Trying to figure out if there's a common interest or not, but in different area.
You weren't willing to listen. No, not.
There are even, there are different social norms on how to approach people also. It's more than languages. It's about body language. It's about how you, it's about the whole ritual of approaching people. Yeah.
Give me a break. Yeah. Yes.
The mayor didn't care about shit.
Yeah, the mayor didn't care about shit, indeed. Yeah, it's true. The mayor didn't care about shit. Especially shit of 100 people. That's, you know, it needs to be at least like 50% of the population. Otherwise, it doesn't work. So we do the case studies now, or yeah, let's do it. Taisa.
I think it's just part of our findings in this project that a lot is many times in our networks, we have people in communities that are engaged or citizens that are willing to change their reality. And in order to do it, they need to build alliances with local authorities or other organizations. And we noted, and also the other way around. Sometimes the municipality, there's someone there willing to engage with local communities and the neighborhood, but they don't really speak the same language. So part of our findings is we need to learn how to translate, how to communicate our needs. And in order to do that, sometimes it's super helpful to have common tools or frameworks that can bridge these gaps. And we will talk more about it.
Best cases.
Some examples from our own experiences with us, brought with us. And maybe Nara, you can start because you're the famous guy from Sweden.
Famous guy. I mean, nobody knows me here, but yeah, yeah. So I was involved since 2009 in a project that's now in 180 countries. It's called currently World Cleanup Day. It started as Let's Do It World, and then clean up something. It spread slowly through different countries. In my country, we were like one of the first 10 countries to join, and we are still the best. We had almost 14% of our population participating in a one-day cleanup, which is a lot, almost 300,000 people. It's a small country, so yeah. And it meant collaborating with everyone. And the pressure was so high that nobody could say no. You know, when you have your president, your prime minister, and your president of the National Assembly being your patrons, then, I mean, nobody can say no anymore. So we basically started very slow and then built up and created this massive movement. And I have like a ton of stories to share that because I worked later with many other countries. We've done trainings for, maybe I should point this out because we are working with tools. So imagine you try to make something that started as a like very small initiatives by a couple of friends talking and saying, let's clean our country. And somebody says, yes, let's do it, but we'll do it in one day. That was in Estonia, 2007. They did the cleanup in 2008. Then we picked it up in 2009, did the cleanup in 2010, and so on. And then we are designing some tools and educational materials how to spread it globally. So basically, then we made a so-called Leaders Academy, which was our tool to like our training, 1 week trainings, which we did all around the world, and like train the leaders for each country to adapt it to their own context and to do the cleanup. And from those places, gosh, there's like a ton of amazing stories of great collaboration. But still, I really like to bring up a wonderful case of Moldova, the neighboring country between Romania and Ukraine, where 2 young girls, one was 17, the other one was 20 years old. They heard about a cleanup happening in their neighboring country, and they were environmental activists. And what they did, they hopped on a bus, they drove to Bucharest, and they attended the cleanup. I was there, and they were very enthusiastic, and they asked questions. How can we start a collaboration with our local authorities? So I said, well, these are a few steps. And when you approach your local mayor, this is what you do. They did it immediately during the cleanup. They said, look at the news from Bucharest. And I was there with them. They were calling, they were explaining what they're seeing and what they need. On Monday, they had a meeting with the mayor, and they had an office for their project immediately, just by like following a few simple steps and also using the already existing examples to do the cleanup. So this is just one simple example of effective collaboration, just by like we did a bad approach of not connecting with the mayor, but they used the mayor's language, they spoke in the right way, and they really connected well with the mayor. And so that's a different type of project where you engage many people in one-day events. This is 24/7 kind of thing, or various other options in between. But so these cards that we are using in local authority community collaboration are much more like grounded in place. That's what we're interested in. But still, I see the value of this more how to put it, like project-based collaboration with municipality, with local authorities, very valuable. Yes. So imagine they are 20 years old and 17, so they were very scared. And it was me and other people from the local group, and we sat there with them. First, we prepared the whole message, and so it was sent to the mayor via mail, and then he got a phone call, and they spoke with him, and there were other people as well there who could speak Romanian and speak to the mayor. So it was kind of a whole team effort that led to this. And they of course immediately hopped on a bus when the mayor said they could have a meeting. They went back, and then they followed up with, okay, some of the instructions were, of course, dress up, be regal, like be official, listen very carefully, write notes, be enthusiastic but not overly enthusiastic, ask questions more than try to convince, look for common points, these kind of things. I don't remember off the top of my head. I just know that we made a good list. So that's, yeah, in the handbook we have we made a list that's also informed a little bit, but by our experiences in the cleanup efforts, where finding common ground is important, because municipality often has resources, some stuff, and you need them. You don't need money often, and then you just have to find the connections between municipality and the initiative. Well, they did get some money, but they managed to fire up the mayor so much that he was really, he got them like in every event that happened with other mayors. So he was bringing them in and really supporting them, even though they were sometimes clumsy. But I don't have enough time to really go deeply into it. It's just to give you like a bit of a taster. If you need more information, I can share. Okay.
I have another story to share. Actually wrote it down. It's in German, so most of you can't read it. But that's my PhD about an eco-village in Germany. I just give it around, so you can just swap. Actually, this eco-village was founded 40 years ago. And when they were coming into that area, they had a really like marginalized position. It was a very conservative area in Germany. And the people over there were like, oh, there are a bunch of hippies coming to our area. And like I took a lot of interviews with the people around and with the mayor actually. And the first thing when I asked how's the eco-village related into its region, they said, oh, they are on the hill, they're dancing naked around the fire. So, so that's why actually my thesis was called like this. But at the end, what turned out after this 30 years when I took this research was that it was very well adapted and integrated. And actually they adapted to each other and they were very well respected and were an own association in that village. And mayor by mayor, within the 30 years, the mayor changed once in a time. He got more interested into that community. And the mayor I talked to, actually, he was so enthusiastic about them. He really liked them. He said, well, they have so good ideas. So he really adapted a lot of ideas. Like, he was very open-minded to the people living in that community. And they came up with forest kindergarten. They came up with electric car stations, loading electric cars with actually in front of the mayor's house. The mayor itself took an electric car in order to put it into the car sharing pool. So there were many innovations implemented into the village up to the point that it actually became a climate neutral village. So they produce more energy, 300 times more energy than they need. Also because of that eco-village that started solar panel energy within the 80s. So it was kind of, in that book, I describe how they came from this marginalized community into a very well integrated part of the village. And now this village is called Climate Village, one of the few climate villages in Germany, actually. And they have a really good relationship with the local council. And they get like climate counselors from the eco-village that actually advise the council on climate questions. So this is what happened within like 30 years of collaboration.
Well, I'm going to give a third example, which is from my position as a university. And so when I was up here behind the lectern and the White Ivory Tower, that's kind of where I sit, but I do try and escape from there quite a lot. And for, I think 4 years, I sat on a couple of committees in my local authority where they needed people to come and talk about carbon and to be, it wasn't a very senior committee, but to start to talk about transport, it was around 2007. So it was quite a while ago in terms of how far we've moved with renewables. But I went and I sat on their committees and we talked about each other's children and we developed relationships. When a funding opportunity came along that required an input from the local authority, they were willing to put in the 20% because they knew me and because I was willing to work with them and wanted to work with them because I knew them. So there's a lesson there for me about the long-term commitment, not always paying off immediately, but that in the end, those kinds of relationships come. So we managed to get some funding for the local authority that had to work out how to engage with communities. So again, it's the other way around. They wanted to know, how do we work with communities? And I was involved with transition and I was involved with some of the other communities that or initiatives that are around in my area. So with a couple of colleagues, we had a number of initiatives to help them develop a strategy. And one of the main things that we did was set up 4 major seminars, one around energy, one around transport, one around food, and one around a kind of values-based seminar. And in those day-long seminars, we brought together some people from initiatives that were doing really well and some local authority members from the relevant departments. And one example I remember is the day when we had the transport one, and we had this fantastic guy from the Netherlands who came across and showed us what was possible in terms of bicycles, because our roads are not very good. You need to actually have separate infrastructure for people to be able to cycle safely in rural areas. And he showed us what this looked like in the Netherlands, and it kind of blew everybody's minds because it put the expectations up here. But the local authority people said to us that they were scared to come in because the only time they really connected with the community was when the community had complaints. And they were expecting to go in and to be shouted at. They expected that they weren't going to know stuff, and then they felt that they might get fired because they would say the wrong thing. They had a lot of fear coming into that meeting. And they were really surprised when the community members were really knowledgeable and really enthusiastic and very specific about their actions. They said, we need to do this. They used the we word. We in this area need to be healthier and have cleaner air and be able to work with, to ensure that our children are healthier and can cycle to school safely. So it was very much around the common value and starting to build towards that. And then the community members talked about successful projects that they'd had, which really impressed the local authority, who did not know that some of those projects were ongoing. So at the end of that day, we had a much better understanding of what each other was expecting and a real reduction of fear and people making contacts with the individuals that they wanted to do. It's a long story, I could go on, but in the end, we had developed a kind of strategy together with the local authority, which I hope enhanced the way that they dealt with communities and helped make some of those collaborations easier in the future. So that was in Scotland and mostly in Fife, although we did work with local authorities elsewhere too. That's our case studies. We're just giving you a wee flavor just now. So if you want to know any more on that, you can get back to us again later.
So we really just want to take a minute or two to reflect on these kind of inspirational case studies that we've been presented and your own experiences of working in collaboration, and just think around kind of a couple of questions. So just wonder if you're reflecting on kind of what works or perhaps what doesn't work for collaboration, is there anything that comes to mind? We all shared some at the beginning, so hopefully we should get going with that.
I would just say, like, seeing what's in it for them. I've found in working with our local authorities, like, what do they get from it? And because at least our local authorities never want to do anything because they don't get fired if they don't do anything. So what do they get?
I wonder if the presence of bridge builders like Margaret Kennedy at Lebensgarten, who was a community member, but also had the institutional prestige of being a university professor, actually helped in that whole process. You know, for policymakers to see, okay, we have this lady who's a professor and so on, who knows how to speak our language, who has, you know, the whole aura of being a professor, and who's also a community member. So therefore, those people must be much more than a bunch of zonked out hippies dancing naked around the fire. There must be something serious going on. I'm sorry? Yes, you talked about that. Yeah, so I wonder if you could make some further comments about the role of these bridge builders and the role of like institutional prestige or the role of certain institutionally recognized roles in this process of bridge building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think that's a very interesting point around legitimacy through association.
Well, actually in Lebensgarten, it was actually the case Anna Margarita said, that there was one person who kind of developed a regional currency on a very broad scale. And she was actually one of the persons who brought them up very much. So she decided to go to the local authorities and to bring that into that local area. And she always said, okay, I have to dress very well, I have to behave very well. And even if we're living in that eco-village, we have to have these connections, and we want to go to the associations, to the traditional associations of the village, of the firearms. No, no, to the associations in the village. Like in Germany, there are many associations like for fire arm, or how is it called? I don't, and for Heimat, home, I don't have homeland. There are a lot of traditional association, and she said she decided to go into those associations to connect with the people, with the that have influence in the eco village. Actually, Stefan lives, my partner. Many people are, or one person actually is going to the truck, like tractor. How do you say that? Tractor club, and collaborate a lot with the farmers over there. Just like he does it for fun, but of course he's the connector of that eco village to the people there, and they are getting the most influence.
Just a very brief comment. Like when we in Slovenia, when we were establishing communication with our mayors, the first mayor we got on board, we used him to go with us to the next neighboring mayor. And then we used every mayor we could get to get other mayors. And that's how we gradually got all of them.
That's great. Do we have any other? Rehema.
Just in terms of bridge builders, I think researchers can do that sometimes, but it becomes it can be a difficult position to be in as well, because holding these multiple roles is, I think there's always a constant question about, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I want to get results or research results, or am I doing this for the community, or am I doing this for my best
Sense of a few things. First of all,
so
generational, it's
I think
community.
keepers can be can be really helpful, but I think they also raise a lot of questions about individuals and integrity.
The power
and
to connect people,
being really open and
the
talking
shared
through those
together,
processes
and that this
and
opportunity
also
can.
gatekeepers. Some people don't like some gatekeepers.
Okay, and thinking back to perhaps the gatekeeper of the funding in our case study, the mayor, and how deflated if you were, Anna, walking away from that, you might feel.
Over
I want
food
to bring that to
as a way of
about
breaking
those kind of darker
creating.
places in the process, and thinking about
So Fed is
question of celebration. How do you actually go forward and celebrate those kind of failures? And if anyone has any kind of reflections on that and how you might kind of change that around or use that energy in a positive way.
Speaking from one of our interview participants about a project, one of the things one of them said was it was the right thing at the right time. And for her, they'd been trying on one of these things. And then suddenly everything boom, 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 boom fell into place. And people said, but that's so lucky. And she said, no, we'd been trying. It was the right thing at the right time. So that was a
Very
great
low
success from her failure.
urban seed.
That was actually also a Scottish case study.
And
Anyone else have any examples of
it's only gotten worse.
kind of failures?
This leads to major mental issues and
driven them forward. If not, I'll take a moment to drive us forward in our workshop and hand over the tissue.
that meaningful
So
connection,
we've
which
all
can be
been
life
sitting
in
down,
these
so it's
times
all time to
of
get up.
isolation and loneliness. So the question is,
and we're not going to make all of you be very active, but we're going to make a couple of you be quite active. So is anybody feeling like they want to limber up a bit?
you want
We'd
to
like to play a little game, if you're up for that.
be
So I need
and
one person who's very flexible and willing to be a little bit limber. Athol.
and I think in general that there's a parallel.
I'm going to have a demonstration.
I'm gonna
Put your phone down.
Sorry, can I briefly just jump in if y'all can hear us?
I'm not still learning,
Yeah.
not a rabbi.
It seems like it seems like the
Switch.
audio on Zoom is picking up a mic from another room. So about every 10 seconds, we hear about 4 words
Charge
from
you in a
someone
very
else's
specific way, and
presentation. I don't know if there's somebody doing tech in the room, but if not, then yeah, just so y'all know. there might not be anything to do about it, but.
think it's
Yeah. Thank you. The tech person heard
grew
that,
up
so hopefully we
isolated
can.
way, suburban
Yeah, we're not
Connecticut.
understanding. So
And
there was an additional noise that was coming in, but then we turned it
Grew up,
off here. So
I found
it still
religion in
coming through now?
college. And my and I went through
Mm.
nice Jewish communities and never really
So
found one
not
where I
quite
thought
sure
that
why
I
that's
mattered or I was
happening at
really
the moment.
seen and valued. Moved into
Okay,
New
if
York
it happens again, thank you for telling us. If it happens again, we'll see if we can do
Sure.
something about it.
and I
But we're going to do it. So can we
and
get
holiday
you
meals for
and
people
across
of
this
all
side,
different
because we're gonna have a
backgrounds.
look
And
across
I
here at the- I'm going to get you to just
they're
demonstrate.
like
how
I'm
you're
saying and that
versus
people
SDG Twister.
want so people
You know,
prepared to do
Andrea, you actually
but
made a
what I
twister?
preferred to do was start
Okay, we're not going to make it too painful. Come on. Okay, so I need somebody. So what we're going to do here is we want to start thinking about things in a holistic system. And when we are collaborating, sometimes it's very
Ingredients, do you
tempting to
stand?
just think about our one little project, but actually that
Event that would-
project sits within a much wider system. And so this next section is starting to think about
And
how
we-
we can work in systems, how we can retain our holistic vision and how things are interconnected. So I'd like somebody to name a kind of topic that they're interested in, that they're working on at the moment.
nature focusing on create
Okay, energy. Now,
Um,
Andreas very
and we-
kindly agreed to help us with this first game of Twister. He's looking very nervous, so we've got to lead him in very, very gently. So, yes, that's probably a good idea. Or maybe we could move the camera. Can we move the camera? Is that possible?
Right.
Okay, watch the flowers. You want to grab the flowers, Paula? We'll grab the flowers. But
So
this
if
could be
more-
more exciting Twister than we actually guaranteed for. Okay, so if you all come across here, we have laid out the SDGs and we're going to actually play a game of SDG Twister. So which SDG is actually possibly related to thinking about, was it community energy you said? Community energy. So which of the SDGs is related to community energy? Okay, so if you put it, right, so if you put it down, I'd like you to stand on that, thank you. Yep. Okay, now is there any other one that might be linked to community energy?
so very intellectual.
Okay, can you manage 1 foot on there? Yeah, you have to do that. And we have
He's
to be
right here.
careful you're not going to
Oh, yeah.
slip. Trip. Okay,
They're really
I'm here just in case you're going to fall over. Okay, is there any other one that might
Me?
be relevant?
and also cultural
Climate action, definitely climate action. Okay, what about another one? Okay. Okay, so Nara, put your foot on there. We need to have somebody else to come in and help there. What do we need? Okay, I think actually it's kind of related
people
to
that,
decent work and economic growth because I know they get money
diversity
for
and
it. Anybody
giving
else?
space for people of all backgrounds of life.
Are there any other SDGs we might be wanting to think about?
I'm gonna say the industry and innovation.
Yep. And anybody else?
And dialogue and food.
Oh,
and
definitely 17.
ways
Everything relates to
of,
17.
um,
Yeah, do you want to hop in? Come on, let's come in there. Okay, maybe we need to help Andreas. Okay, I tell you what, I'll stand on here. Can somebody yeah, you come across here and we'll need somebody else to stand on 11. Come on, it's okay, you're okay. Right, somebody else stand on 11. Come on,
Well-
Athol, come stand on 11. Oh, okay, we've got someone on there. Okay, Anne on 11. I'm wondering about whether it isn't also good health and well-being because it's about reducing pollution. Okay, you've got one there. So, okay, I think we kind of made the point. You see very quickly how any one of these things starts to have an effect on a whole range of the other SDGs, that these things are interconnected. And if you have a project, you can often have positive impacts on multiple things. And what we want to try and do is minimize negative ones. Thank you very much, everyone. I think that's probably enough for the SDG Twister, but thank you for volunteering. That's great. Yeah, I did actually have a real Twister map. I had an old sheet and I had them painted on, but I didn't bring it with me here to now. So we have another game which is going to happen now, and that's taking it from the SDG. Should I talk a little bit about this? Yeah. So at the very beginning, I mentioned about how the SDGs are really useful to us actually for many reasons. I don't believe in blind delivery. I don't think the SDGs are perfect, but I think they're a really good tool to allow us to explore with different collaborators the scope of sustainable development. It's not just about the environment and it's not just about society. It's about all of these different elements and they interconnect. The other thing that's really useful in terms of collaboration is it creates a bit of a common language. And so as we said at the beginning, if you go to your local authority, your national government, they have to report against the SDGs. And so they may have to do that in a very specific way, depending on their local government or national government framework. But it's a way that we can help because we're often doing things that can link into that. But what does that actually look like at community level? Because in many cases, if you take this language into a community, it's not always a language that people can relate to. Economic growth, which is a bit of an oxymoron anyway, but when it comes to sustainable development, but talking about reduced inequalities, life below water, no poverty, they're not always things that are really inspiring. So how do we take that and translate it for communities?
I can give an example, and I don't know if you ever heard about the design cards, the Eco-Village design cards. In Gen, we also call them the map of regeneration, and it's a tool or a framework that brings principles and practices that eco-villages are using in 4 big areas, or let's say in 5 big areas: social, ecology, economy, culture, and also design. How do we integrate all of them? So to introduce the cards, I will invite all of you here to come and pick one card. You can just take it randomly, and then you can get together with 2 other people. And how does this card relate to you, your work, your research? Just try to figure it out. Is there any connection about what are you doing, your work, your project, and these cards? You just get together with 2 other people. Maybe bring him. Yeah.
Want to themselves. Makers movement like DIY. The project I think is unique. Also the Summer Club movement is the other one that we basically started a could come and eat and have a talk, and that's basically the idea of dinner parties is also a trend. You know, people inviting people for dinner parties, so that's certainly something that we can speak to and have done a lot. I don't know if that answers your question, but I don't know about. Good question. Sure. Profit, which is hence the board. The board all intentionally based in New York, except for one who moved to Philly during the pandemic, who was eligible. Yep.
Okay, I think it was, you can continue just because some groups are ready. And then I will
You-
add the second
Which are
task.
either
Once you introduced your cards, I will ask you to be creative and come up with a possible project you
Fun.
could do together in your neighborhood or community, linking these three cards.
no, the part that's just for members to come and supplies. So yeah, the I lives as well.
Maybe we can have 1 more minute for us to wrap up the projects. We can think about possible opportunities or challenges around this project. Yeah. So are we ready? So I will invite you to, let's put the cars here so we can, that's in the middle. Okay. So I will invite the groups to briefly share how was the activity, if it was easy to connect, if you could come up with some insight, you shared one. And just to reflect together briefly, how was that?
Couple of minutes we had, there was very little time. And I like the combination of the 3 cards actually that we got, but somebody just swiped one of them. They all fitted very well together, I thought, I think we all did. And there was an idea of maybe finding some kind of derelict house where we could use the garden area to grow some food. We could turn the place into a kind of educational area for different ages, from young kids to older people. Bring in seeing waste, as a resource and not as garbage. Actually, I like the idea of centering around the garbage where people take their garbage actually, and having a secondhand area where people could come and either just take stuff or have very low price stuff. But of course you need work power to organize these things. And it's all to do with low impact lifestyle, cheap living, recycling. Yeah, anything to say?
Nothing to add. It was actually pretty well. We even thought about it, like who would be the volunteers or the work power, as you said. Maybe we take some people from university, some students, and they are the ones teaching kids how the process works and so on, but trying to close circles around these 3 topics that was there. That's the purpose of this, let's say, common house or learning house, learning center, whatever. Yeah, and we know a property that is available for that. That was our approach to the municipality in that sense. And we need authorization and maybe a couple of tools. Yeah. You have anything to add?
Just present the cards.
You can.
Okay, the cards were work with waste as a valuable resource. Was grow food and soils through organic farming, organic agriculture. And the third one was reconnect to nature and embrace low impact lifestyles.
And I think it was interesting when I came close to you, Ruth, you said, oh, now you're speaking my language. I like the cards. And
But I know nothing about all of them. So that makes it clearer. There's them and there's us, and they're 2 different languages, and we need translation between the 2 groups.
thank you. Let's invite this group to present.
Okay. Yeah. So our 3 cards were find strengths, weaknesses, and leverages in areas, cultivate social entrepreneurship to create sustainable solutions, and yes, practice conflict facilitation. So Paula immediately went to community energy. And we thought to, in my hometown in California, this is a huge fight because all the cities are part of community energy, but the county resists because they think it's a democratic plot to take over the world. And so we talked about how do we convince a very dysfunctional Republican board to embrace community energy. And so part of that was to see like what would advantage their constituents. So in our case, it's big farmers, and to point out that, you know, there are many things with community energy that would actually help farmer constituency, and then to try to facilitate peacemaking among the board because they hate each other and scream at each other and refuse to do anything, but to point out that there are leverage points that help them both, Republicans and Democrats, on this issue. So to be able to show how it will help them economically, help them with both sides of their constituencies, and help them, show how choice, very Republican thing, sustainable energy, very Democratic thing, this should actually be able to bring them together. So, and Taisa, maybe about 10 minutes.
I really loved the example of trucks, electric trucks that Ford came up with, because I've been in the United States and I've seen how they have all these big trucks and they can plug their tools and charge them. And this is a big thing. So everybody wants to have an electric truck. So that's like a leverage point, how to convince farmers, like, yeah. And then we should look for other leverage points to bring more and more pressure on the board.
I was just gonna say, yeah, so we thought about that particular one and thought that social enterprise would then be a way of reinvesting the money into things like charge points, which would be available not just to the big farmers, but more widely in constituents as a way of kind of helping the facilitation and using the leverage point to our advantage.
Thank you. So last group.
You want me to do it, or yes? Would you like to speak, or do you want me to? No. Okay, I will speak. Okay, so we originally thought it was quite challenging because we had 2 culture cards, and the first one was nurture mindfulness and personal growth, and then we also had connect to a higher purpose in life. But luckily, we had a very practical card, and we also had a card which said clean and replenish sources and cycles of water. And so we talked about these different aspects and how they're all related. And then we talked about how for a project, we might start with that one and we'd want to have clean water. And if we had clean water, then we'd have a place where people could go and be in peace and do mindfulness and meditation and so on. And then we thought, well, maybe sometimes it's not always that way around, because how do we get the clean water? And we talked about examples where people sometimes in Southern Africa, an example where there was a community that had recognized that due to a loss of culture and identity, and this connecting to their, maybe not a higher purpose in life, but they're connecting to their cultural identity had meant that they had, for reasons not their fault, lost control of their forests and their water courses. And in recognition of that fact, they were able to not only start to clean up waters, but actually start to reclaim some of their institutional authority and pursue some of their cultural practices, which had been a little bit eroded. So sometimes the obvious answer didn't kind of work there. And then we started talking about a different way in which you might want to clean your water, which is actually getting Western organizations to fund cleaner water pumps and these different kinds of entities. And we said, well, who's going to fund those? Perhaps we need NGOs and charities that have a higher purpose in life and want to support development in different ways. And in order to support them, we need Westerners who are very at peace and do lots of mindfulness and meditation and want to donate to the charity to be able to get the water. So we tried them in different ways to see how it would work. Yeah.
So just to complete, we put the map here on the floor. If you want to have a look, usually we use a beautiful mattress, but I don't have it here. And yeah, just these reflections about the tools. I could feel our energy was quite low when we started because it's late. And then when we started like to use the tools and play around, it brought energy in. And it's also part of our findings in this project that is super important, not only to pay attention in and try to find what is the appropriate language to connect, but also to use specific tools and frameworks to support this dialogue, to build bridges. And sometimes as we try to present in the role play, we really speak different languages. We have different perspectives. And when we have very practical tools, it's much easier to get closer, to interact in a different way, and to come up with the common ground or a common plan. I don't know if anyone else would like to add. Yeah.
What do you think? First thing, thank you for the tool.
what do you think is the unique contribution of these tools? Because there are many models and practices about collaborations and about how to get closed and how to make community initiatives and how to talk with the mayor. But what do you think is your contribution here?
Thank you. So I've used the map of regeneration before, and I think it's a very useful exercise because it allows for holistic scoping. But for me, the really exciting thing about this just now, the potential for collaboration, is the link to that, because that's what governments want to do. And private sector is also trying to work out how to deal with the SDGs. Some of the very big companies in the private sectors have got far more sophisticated ways of assessing indicators and mapping interactivities than many governments. So PricewaterhouseCoopers, for example, but there are many other examples of really big organizations that are trying to work out how to do that. So that for me means when we start talking about scaling, that this maps much more easily onto that and enables us to find that common ground more simply. In association with this map of regeneration, there's another tool called the impact assessment, which allows for communities to be able to say, all right, well, what do we want to do? And should we start to monitor our progress around our goals in these particular areas? And there are indicators that communities can start to gather data on and then be able to put together. And those indicators are again matched in community language and meaningfulness for communities against the kind of indicators that we have for the SDGs. So it's much easier for communities to step into a space and say, we are working together, we're doing the same things, how can we do that? The form of collaboration. You mean how do you collaborate? That's what comes. So that's not really in this workshop, but it's in the handbook and it's in the train the trainers sessions that we do. So the handbook is a handbook on how to collaborate. And it draws on the toolkit, which has a number of different tools, not just these tools that can be used to collaborate. So sociocracy and modes of conflict management and dragon dreaming, a whole load of other tools that are possible. And then the trainer's handbook is for trainers who want to take that handbook on, and we have a train the trainer program which allows that to come into place. So yeah. 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 So are you saying that for people to use this, do they need to have? Yeah. So I think these tools are for a community to be able to assess at a holistic stage what it is that they would like to work on and how they want to work. And it can also be used as a tool for collaboration. It's not the only tool you use for collaboration, and it's not used just for collaboration. But what we have done in this project is draw on these tools to show specifically how you could use them in collaboration with this idea of scaling regenerative practices. So I can chat. Can we just let Andrea just have a very quick, yeah? Okay. Okay.
Please answer.
I was gonna repeat about the, because I think I understood the same way the question. I was gonna just mention that, don't forget to mention the handbook on your answer. So that was it, actually. But another thing, maybe I was looking at this card here, and I've played a similar game before, but then the phrases kind of change. For example, one talk we had here, there's no such a thing as waste. You said that, I forgot your name. Ruth said that there's no such a thing as waste in her life or her practice in her community and so on. So And then you said map of regeneration, and that's exactly what regenerative approach is. Instead of sustainable development approach, as you can say, maybe one complements the other, but all the phrases change in a way that they see abundance and possibility of increasing biodiversity instead of stop harming the biodiversity, so increasing is a different way, is a more proactive way to approach it. And exactly, and all the phrases are somehow pointing that direction, and that is exactly what the regenerative approach should look like, I guess. So that was just an observation, not a question.
Very direct. This is a uniquenesses in the bridge building in a specific way that's described in our materials. So that's very strong focus, how to do this bridge building between very specific audiences. And then we are using the tools, like most of us nowadays, it's impossible to design something completely new. You have to use elements from things that others have designed and studied, and then you combine something that's kind of unique.
You could also say that the purpose with the cards or with world goals is to raise awareness about our interdependencies and to find a language on a higher level, how we on a world scale are dependent on each other. I'm working in the UN Association in Denmark, so I'm very positive. But we wrote a small brochure after 2015, and we could see that there was a lack in the whole way they communicated the world goals. First of all, we need small initiatives for thinking in another economic model. And then we also need a more clear bottom-up model. And the third thing is about the reduction of the birth rate in the world. That's totally missing. But it's very positive.
So thank you very much, everyone. I'm just going to have one concluding statement and then we'll finish off. So we hope that you've had a little bit of fun this evening. It's been a workshop. We wanted to try and get away from the PowerPoint slides and do something a little bit different. And collaboration is all about connecting as human beings and thinking about that, tackling stereotypes, learning languages. We've also talked about scaling, and we've talked about different ways we might scale across local, regional, national, particularly focusing on the language and the linkages using these particular tools. But we would like you, when you leave here, to think about this and to reflect on these and to think about in what ways might you take, maybe just when you go, and I presume everyone's going to the bar just now, maybe not, reflect on what point of collaboration you'd like to take forward from this, or what aspect of scaling would you like to take into whatever work you're doing. We really thank you for coming. It's been a long day and we really appreciate having you here.
And thank you to the tech crew, to Amsala, to Jenny, wherever she is, and finally to Paula, Taisa, Anne-Kathrin, Nara, and Rehema. So I think we all need a drink, but a final thanks to everyone.